Right. Hey, Craig, could we, okay, so I've got, this is going to be recorded, so you're not going to tell us any top secret stuff, right? At this point?
No.
Probably train you pretty well not to do such things, right?
Correct. They do. They do. Absolutely.
Yeah. So Craig, so this is a class, we got a bunch of people studying Lean Six Sigma Green Belt. So your current position as subject matter expert at Vandenberg, so what's its relationship to Lean, or how does Lean play into your job?
Well, Lean plays in very significantly at the moment. We've been having one of the areas is for space operations. Everyone's heard of satellite communications.
Right.
Well, we've been having a problem with some of those communication frequencies being jammed in a certain part of the world. And it's been affecting our ability to support our operations there. And we're in the process of trying to figure out how we can more rapidly identify when an interference event is occurring. How do we attribute it? First, we have to characterize it so we can know exactly what's happening. Can we attribute it to where its source is? And can we geolocate that source and then take measures to stop the jamming? So that's what it basically is jamming. If anyone's ever been on your cell phone and suddenly you hear a different conversation other than the one you're on, or you're driving in your car and you suddenly have two different radio stations music come in when you haven't touched the dial. That's an example of every day that interference of radio signals can happen.
So Craig, it occurs to me just, hearing you sort of talk about a real problem that exists in the industry. So you've got a satellite communications process that the problem is this jamming thing that's going on. And I guess sort of the next question is, do you have a thing where you measure it? Like, so we're talking to the students and trying to encourage them to get like good measures. Is it, I don't know, is it intensity of jamming, or the number of bit error rates or ones and zeros that you lose in your communication, or is that something you guys are concerned about, or?
Absolutely. Bit error rate, now you're really getting into the weeds. That is one of the ways we determine if a signal is valid or not. But there are ways to override just through sheer energy level that can wipe out the signal. But yeah, we measure, we have a way of characterizing the signal. That's kind of what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. So how do we know it's what the signal is? And we characterize it, and because that's like a fingerprint, and then we can use it to trace back to the source of the jamming. We can attribute it to a specific emitter that is producing a signal. But I think what would be more relevant is, to your point of measuring, how many events have there been, how many missions has it affected, how long it took us to try and resolve that source of jamming, and then do some mitigation measures to reestablish services to our troops forward. And it can be different. It can be similar to in industry. If you have a fleet of trucks and they have an RF, radio frequency identifier, and you're tracking their location, and you need to give them updated information to reroute them around bad weather, an accident, and you can't do that, well, your deliveries are going to be significantly delayed because of that gap or that blockage of communication that's occurring. So yeah, yes, we measure those things, and absolutely.
So Craig, just to give the students here a sense of the scale of this, you've been working on this problem for a while. This isn't like a 10-week, oh, I got the answer and it's done kind of thing, right? This is like in manpower and number of months and stuff, this is a pretty big deal, right? Worldwide.
It's an ongoing, well, when it happens, it is a big deal. This is a core process that we have. So we're always looking at it. And the big difference has been prior to prior to, let's say, this winter, we just had a regular team that would track this and look, and on a regular basis, look at how we could improve. But because we finally really got top level executive support, we have really just exploded this process entirely. So instead of maybe a dozen folks talking back and forth, sharing things that they observed, making updates, we have like 50 people across different regions, different organizations, all coming together to really tear apart the process of how do we quickly detect and mitigate this interference. Because what's happening is that if the interference goes on for a certain amount of time, then some of the the drones that are doing observations, they turn around and go back to their base, and we lose the value of what that's giving us. And so we are really getting down to everything from Pareto histogram, the Ishikawa diagram on down to those processes. We've done process mapping, and we're even going down to each step of the process and say, well, we have written this kind of overall guidance that at the top level, but has that made it into the individual checklist of each person in this process? So they know how to rapidly communicate and assess what's going on.
So Craig, those things. So I recognize a lot of those lean tools, and there's some of the things that students, if they haven't already been exposed to in this class, they're going to be exposed to. Is it like, so are those 50 people that you've got sort of work on it, is lean sort of a common language, or is it like only 10% of the people know how to speak or have been trained in lean and they kind of pull the others along? Or what would you sort of say the sense of it is? Is it now sort of a common, everybody in your organization needs to know this stuff in order to work on these problems, or what do you think?
Yes and no. It's interesting. I want to say about 10 years ago, 5 to 10 years ago, the Air Force had a really big process for process improvement and teaching lean methodologies. But it's kind of gone out of more common phrasing and uses, but the concepts are there and they remain. Because it's been elevated well beyond where we're at. There are different people leading it, but they're doing the right processes, and yet they're not necessarily using the formal lean terminology. They're not talking about histograms or Ishikawa diagrams as such. They're just looking at, okay, we have this event. What's causing it? Is it the machine? Is it the operator? Is it the environment that is coming through? Okay, what about the level of training? And it's becoming almost intuitive that they're not aware that they're doing it. So yes, they're very conversant with it. But if you walk and say, oh, this is lean methodology, they'd say, well, what do you mean? And you'd have to explain it to them. And then they'd go, oh yeah, I guess we are doing that.
So Craig, I want to remind the students that we're looking for some questions in the chat. I don't know, Wes, if you're kind of watching, or if you got.
All right. First we got Henry. So Henry, if you want, you can send it, and then we'll go Dan.
Okay, I see Henry's question, but there's one term I'm not sure what it means. MIC.
Let's have them pop on and ask the question.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, Henry.
My internet connection is not fantastic in my room, so if there's any issues, just
maybe there's some jamming going on, Henry.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it could be. MIC, I was referencing the military industrial complex. My father used to work at Lockheed, and
Mhm.
he was talking about a lot of this stuff with me. So
Okay.
that's kind of why I posed that question. It's somewhat unrelated to the topic, but it just kind of, I don't know,
That's okay.
got me buzzing.
Good. Now, unfortunately, there was a glitch when you said define what MIC was for the rest of us. Could you say that again, please?
Sure. Military industrial complex.
Okay. So what is the
Okay.
question? I'm not reading the
Okay,
chat.
what he's saying, he's asking, why is 5G and wave technology becoming increasingly popular for everyday folk as opposed to the military industrial complex and top governments around the world? Frankly, it's very cutting edge. In the military, we tend to want reliability is often more valued than the very latest thing, because we have to know it works. It can't be, hey, this is really great, it should work. No, we have to know because people's lives are at risk. So that's why there's a delay. The military is almost, in some areas, we're almost always 10 years behind. There are other areas, like you sound like, Henry, you might be, if you want to work for the government, you could look at DARPA or IARPA, which is some of the most cutting edge thinking and development out there. The internet was originally funded by DARPA. The three folks who came up with it went to DARPA and they helped fund it. Driverless cars are another one. A lot of the technology was developed at DARPA. It stands for Defense Acquisition something program. It's for all the most cutting edge ideas and concepts that don't really have a home in industry, but yet we see a value in them. 5G is being absorbed so much because of the amount of data it can carry. The amount of data that's being carried every second is just phenomenal. And so when you have the 5G, you can carry that much more of what you're trying to do. That's the best answer I can give you.
Okay, good. Thank you for the question, Henry. And then Dan, are you next?
Dan's up.
Yeah, you might hear the guitar in the background. That's my housemate next door.
Okay. We all are doing Zoom. We get it.
Yeah, but I'm lucky that it's like not that bad. He's actually pretty good at the guitar. Anyways, I was wondering which environment you think is harder to speak lean language. Why is there such a hard barrier to get into the lean language, the lean way of thinking? I was wondering, why is it a barrier? You said yes and no to when you first answered that question. Why is it a no for some populations?
Interesting. Yeah, good question.
That's a good one because unfortunately, okay, my master's degree actually is in Lean Six Sigma, but it was back before Six Sigma was part of Lean. It was called Total Quality Management. And before Lean in the US had a lot of the rigor and analytical tools that Six Sigma provided, it was just, well, you guys just go figure out how to do it better. We need to rework this. And, it's quality. We have the koala tea, somebody would walk around in a koala costume. It was not really, had robust education and support when it originally came out. A lot of people Henry talked about, why aren't we jumping on it? They jumped on it too fast and they really didn't understand it. And so it was not implemented properly. And so there became a bit of a barrier to it because, we tried that before. Well, you tried it wrong. And I've been in those environments. And so one thing I'd like to bring along for you folks, especially as like a couple of, I think it was Danielle had a great idea. And also there was another lady who had about how to reduce some of these things, is restringing rackets. Another gentleman had that.
Yeah.
When you go to your management, you've got to not say, hey, this is a great idea, it could be good. Well, you need to quantify it. We can save 3 hours per racket. That means we can do 4 more rackets each week, which translates into another $500 in sales and for less man hours. So that's where Lean, when it came out, did not really teach how to quantify the impact to the bottom line.
Right.
And so when we had the way we started getting more traction, when we were able to say, no, go with the Six Sigma rigor, say, this is exactly how it's going to apply to your bottom line. You're going to, this inventory won't lag. It'll be on the floor sooner. Therefore, the money you invested won't be either lost or sit for three weeks or 2 months. You'll have to sell it at a 100% discount, 20% discount, whatever number, I'm sorry, 80% discount, 20% profit. You can sell it faster and make more money and get it faster. And it would, in my estimate, it would be this amount of money. When you can put those real numerical impacts, hours saved, dollars earned, that's what really started to get people's attention.
Yeah, and that was a really big breakthrough, I think, for the Six Sigma side of the house, where there was a real aggressive attempt to try to dollarize the savings, whereas Lean people were saying, hey, here's the Tim Wood or downtime acronym. These things are all bad. Trust us. If you take away these bad things, things will get better. But sometimes people were taking away, some of those lease, and it really wasn't impacting the bottom line as much as, you would sort of think or hope, or, people didn't have the 10 years to wait, right? So,
yeah. The other thing I would say is that at least in the initial rollout of Lean, from what I remember, and a lot of this is secondhand because I wasn't in the Lean game for as long as some of the folks that mentored me, but there was a real concerted effort to kind of copy and paste what Toyota did, right? And they were like, we just need to do it exactly like this, versus really looking at the way that Toyota developed that stuff organically. They had a problem, they got together and they went and fixed the problem together, and then they documented what they did, and then a bunch of industries went over to Toyota and said, how did you fix that? And they're like, we did this process. And they said, okay, well, then we're going to do exactly that, versus taking what they actually did. And so there was a concerted effort to try and get people to do Lean the right way, versus actually what the intention of Lean is, which is to solve problems, which really turned a lot of people off. There was a lot of compliance, like, no, you don't call it improvement. You call it Kaizen, and we got to 5S everything. And so that's where you see like a bunch of like meeting spaces with like tape around staplers and markers and things that people just looked at and were like, this is ridiculous. Like, why are you making me do all this extra stuff that's netting, and to get back to Craig and Eric's point, that's netting me nothing. It has not improved my day at all. It's not improving the way that we do things. And so that to me is kind of one of the bigger gaps of why it hasn't been, at least initially, so widely adopted. Now I think we've learned a little bit of a lesson. We've turned a bit of a corner, but as anybody knows, with a boat at anchor, it takes a long time to drag that anchor up and start getting momentum. I think the boat's moving, but we've got some ground to make up.
Yes.
But a good question, Daniel. Super fascinating.
Yeah, that's right to the heart of the challenge you're going to face.
Yeah,
you're going to, just like the question coming up by Lori.
Lori, why don't you go ahead? Lori, why don't you go ahead and pop on and read your question for us?
Hi. I work for Southern California Edison, and there was a group of us that were taking a look at Lean Six Sigma. This is maybe 3 years ago. And we got together and said, okay, what process could we improve? Well, searching for documents is a big problem when you have an organization of 18,000 employees where the upper management like to reorg the entire organization or part of the organization. Every 3 to 4 years, they just completely do a reorg, and then they lay off people and you can't find anything. And so I had been an IT manager. I was IT manager for the city of SLO many years ago. And so one of the things that was so important was the file naming convention. And it saves so much time when you have a group of people who are looking at the file name, and they can figure out where it is, where it belongs, when, you know. So anyway, I was just asking, we estimated, we made a list of all these, we interviewed a number of people and said, okay, how do you go about doing your job, and how do you name your files and stuff? And then we recommended some alternative steps, and we tried to estimate the time savings in labor and searching and the cost estimate related to that, so that we could propose it to management. And so I'm saying that the estimating was estimating. So, you know, is that enough? Or when you're doing this, do you have a methodology for estimating that is better than what the average people do?
No, I wouldn't say what I have is any better. That's it. And is it more to the heart of your question? Is it enough? That really depends upon the management. If they're looking to improve something, then yes. However, if you've got to really convince someone that doesn't want to waste that time because you need to be productive, it would be better if we could give us a pilot project, or we did this ourselves, and we came up with a common name set, and then we tested it, and this is what we found. It does depend. As far as the process of estimating, the lean tools you're going to learn are probably the better ones that I've used, but it really depends on the system. I mean, the measurement tools. I don't really have anything better than what you're going to learn here.
Here's my general rule with that, because I before I came to Cal Poly, I worked for an organization that we would spend a bunch of time wringing our hands trying to get down to the cent of savings. You know, like we're talking about, like, oh, did we save 1995 or did we save 2004? You know, and so we did this really, you know, what we landed on was this cultural shift of like, go with what you're intellectually comfortable with defending. You know, show them your work, and you can tell them, where did your hypothesis start? Like, where does the raw data begin? Where does your hypothesis data start? And just tell them, this is, you know, here's my estimate, and use those terms. If they want more, then go with what Craig is saying. It's like, well, let us pilot it somewhere. Let us do it in one area, and we can time before and after. But the message that I really tried to deliver to leadership is, you know, at the end of the day, does it really, if you're wanting to quantify time, why is quantifying time important? Because it makes people more productive. If we think that this is going to help us improve that, do you want me to spend time to actually sit there with a stopwatch and time somebody and see how long it takes, and then extrapolate that out to 100 employees for the next 6 years to give you your ROI? Or if I have passion and effort and energy, and I want to lead this project, and I think it's going to make a difference, you know, what do you need from me to make that okay with you? You know, like, that's kind of the way I tend to approach it. If they want a business case, let them know it's, you know, it might take more effort for me to build this business case than it would be to actually just go and do the improvement. But again, to Craig's point, it does depend on what's important to your leadership. And if they really want that quantifiable data, that's the sandbox you got to play in. But it never hurts to just ask.
That he raises, Wes raises a great point, because I know of one company I worked for, Fortune 500 company, wanted to implement an enterprise resource process, very sophisticated. And they tried to get it down to how many nails are we going to put on this this house? How many screws? And they tried to quantify that into their software system, and it collapsed, and it got a hugely bad rap. That's where I was going to, so it was too much, and it caused the whole thing to fail. Whereas if they had simply done, okay, we need to have 10,000 nails at the beginning of each month, and when it gets to 5,000, order more, and just you have a line on the bin. When it gets there, that's when you order more. Now, I'd like to get back to the question that was the comment of the inventory for the cannabis inventory and also the clothing inventory. One tool I've gotten from another industry organization called Production Inventory Control, they have something called ABC costing. And it just ties into your Pareto principle. Okay. For each of you, you're probably going to have 20% of your product that produces 80% of the profit. Focus your inventory efforts on that.
Yeah.
Don't worry if when the dresses that you're going through, if they're only going to give 20% of the profit, it's not worth your effort. Focus on those 20% of the clothing that's going to produce the majority. That's what needs to be tightly controlled. The rest of it, it's probably not, a time value of effort. The tools here, I got to tell you, I was looking at this Greenbelt story, some of the questions that people answer, they align so well with my notes that I was going to share and hand out, because those are really time tested. And I just come back to them again and again and again to help me approach a problem. So the tools you're learning here, you'll see throughout the rest of your careers, even if you're not a green belt, I mean, even a lean manager or a lean expert, they'll help you do your jobs. When I got my lean certification, I already had several years, like Lori, of experience. So the next job I got had nothing to do with lean. They liked the fact I had a master's degree, but they wanted my work experience from before. But as they gave me new challenges, I used my lean knowledge to help me solve problems. And so I was using lean, but kind of from under the deck. I didn't worry about necessarily having the formal terminology. I just worried about trying to have it applied properly and to deliver the product that we were building and developing.
So Craig, I think this has been a wonderful discussion. It's gone a little bit longer than we go with a lot of our lean celebrities. So I really appreciate your stopping in and doing this. And we've got some other things that we need to cover tonight before we wrap up. But I'm going to say thank you. One of the things I've sort of learned, so the American Sign Language, this little shaking your hands like this is a sign for applause. So if we get everybody to wrap up the video here, snap on your video. It's going to give Craig a little bit of applause here. Thanks for coming. Thanks for being a part of our little Cal Poly family here. Thank you very much.